Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Sustainable Stace. Today it's the kale edition. We're talking about what many people call the queen of greens. It's a nutrient-dense superfood. I love kale. We're going to cover growing it, overwintering it, saving seeds, and some great ideas for eating as well. Stay tuned.
I'm Stace. For me, healthy food and sustainability are totally connected. You can grow it yourself. Nature is generous.
Maybe you're one of those people like me and you were born loving kale, so growing it is the most glorious way to get the free, best, yummy food you can imagine. Others of you might be like, yeah, I'm not so sure about kale. First of all, I'd suggest you try a few different varieties, because you might have only been introduced to one or two types, and maybe the third type will be the magical one. If you're a person who's cooking for a number of people, you probably want a garden to have 2, 4, maybe even 6 plants per person. And so I grow 20 or 30 plants, and I always put out Facebook posts to my friends and neighbors saying, come pick kale. I've had 8 different families come to this section of my garden in the last week to grab lettuce and kale and chard. Now, the first thing to realize about kale is it's got a 2-year life cycle, a biennial life cycle. Year 1 is all about growing the leaf, which is good for the eater. Year 2 is all about growing the seeds. And so if you've never kept a plant till year 2, you might have never seen what happens. Now I'll just show you what the seeds look like up close. This jar has hundreds of them, but there's about 15 or 20 seeds on my palm. They're tiny. Yes, beautiful little creatures that come about in year 2 of the 2-year life cycle of a kale plant. So let's start out looking at year 1 and how to get those leaves lovely, and then we'll look at the seed saving and the food eating coming out of year 2 as well. Here we go. Okay, I'd mentioned to you that I grow 3 different varieties of kale in my garden this year, and I'll show you the 3 different varieties here. So the one that's probably the most prolific in my garden is this one. It's like a red-purple Russian variety. The leaves are massive. I think that from the seeds I've saved, it might have cross-pollinated a bit in the past with cabbage, so the leaves are even oversized because it is related to cabbage, and we'll talk about that in cross-pollination later. Then green curly kale. This is what you'd see most likely in the produce section of your local grocery store. It grows beautifully. I've got another great place in the garden where I'm saving these seeds, and I'll show you about that in a little bit. Green curly is lovely. This is the best one to dry. Okay, then this is probably the funkiest one. This is called lacinato. It's an Italian variety. It's grown apparently in Tuscany. It's beautiful for kale salads, and you know what it's nicknamed? Dinosaur kale. Look at that rough, cool exterior like a reptile's skin. So that's lacinato. So lacinato, green curly, and the red Russian purple one I have. Now let's talk about getting it growing. If you're going to grow kale, I'd suggest not direct seeding in the garden, though that could work. I'd suggest starting it in a little like a 4-inch pot like this. And to get it going, here's what I do. First, I would put really nice, healthy, nutritious soil into the pot, and I wouldn't use all the soil I have initially. I would have it mostly full, but I'd keep some out. Then I would moisten it, and I'd pour a little bit of water on that so that especially purchased potting soil, which is light and fluffy, that moisture will get it to sink and settle, which is better to happen before you put the seeds in than after. Then in a pot this size, I would put in 2 seeds, at the most 3, and I'd put them in different areas of the pot because maybe one of them won't germinate, but probably 2 out of 3 will. That way you can pull them apart a little bit when you transplant them into your garden. Then I would take the final little bit of my soil and just dry sprinkle a little bit more soil on top of it so they're moist. Remember, for seeds to germinate, they don't need sunlight. They need moisture and warmth. So you could even cover this with cardboard or plywood or something so the moisture doesn't all evaporate off in the first week while it's germinating. You won't have to water it as often then to keep the soil and the seeds nice and moist. When you've got it out in the garden then, you're going to want to plant it in a place where it's going to be well compacted into the soil so the roots are immediately connecting with the surrounding soil. And in my garden I always use a drip line, and every 30 centimeters I have a drip, and I put my kale on either side of the drip line so the moisture is going to it and the plants are getting water to the roots right away, but not to any of the surrounding, let's say, weeds or other plants that you're not wanting to water. So when you've started your starts and you've put them in moist soil and they've germinated up, this is a good example of a big size to transplant into the garden. This one's as tall as an outstretched hand, and it could be smaller than that, but certainly you know that the root system this little plant's got developed, if you put them in the garden, it's going to take off and do really well. I plant them quite dense because it just helps them outcompete the weeds or anything else that's trying to take the nutrition and the moisture. I would place them, 30 centimeters a foot apart, and the same on opposite sides of a drip line so that there's a lot of them close together and they bunch up and grow well. They don't have any competition from anything but themselves. So this one's ready to go, and just one took off in this pot, but in some cases my pots have two, and I just pry the roots apart and plant them as separate plants. Now, I want to take you to another part of the garden where I've got the green curly kale, and it's in year 2. This is early year 1. I'm going to show you early year 2. It's getting ready to go to seed, and I'm going to show you what I do to save the seeds, because that's one of the most fun parts about growing plants like kale. Here we go. There's a few key things I do, like I said, to ensure that I have kale year round. Number one, I don't just plant it once, I plant it twice. As my first crop that I've started indoors or outside under cover in early spring gets into the ground and starts to grow, and the plants are about that high, we start to harvest and start to eat that, and I'm getting into my joyous time where I'm eating it fresh, fried, dried, and blended all the time. And as we get into middle of summer, I'm starting my second crop of the year. I'm starting new seeds in little pots, and I'm getting and going, so that just as my first crop is winding up, I'm transplanting my second crop. The sun starts to go down, the days start to get a little darker where I live on the west coast of Canada, but my second crop of kale is established as fall starts. And then here's the big kicker. You see these white PVC hoops that I have all over my garden? You've seen them all through the video today, and I've got a video how to build a hoop house. It's really simple. Take a look at that if you need more instruction. But in short, with that hoop house, I'm able to cover my winter greens like chard and like kale, and I can keep that growing season going right through the winter. Take a look at this photo. This is in the middle of winter at my place, but look at how green and lush it is underneath the hoop house. So that should kind of seal the deal for you if you're wondering how to do that in a moderately cold climate. Now let's take a look at these seeds. And never underestimate the power of a volunteer. Here you can see I'm planting in the garden onions on purpose, but nearby some really powerful volunteers. Chard that's come up from its own seed from last season, and just behind it, a kale plant growing up. So these are true seed. They look like true chard and true kale. They're going to be vigorous. I just let them flourish right where they are. So this is green curly kale that's going to seed, and remember that all kale varieties are in the same family called crucifers. Now crucifers get their name from, I believe, the Latin word for a cross. So here's a little image up close of a photo of one of the flowers on this plant. Take a look at that crucifer flower, and the idea is that every crucifer has a flower that's 4 petals shaped like a cross. Any crucifers will cross-pollinate, which means if you have a cabbage, a Brussels sprout, a kale, a broccoli, or a cauliflower, those are the main crucifers that I grow, and they're flowering at the same time, bees could pollinate between the 2 or 3 or 4 types of plants, and you could get some crazy mutant hybrid crucifer, and it could be kale, Brussels sprout, cabbage, and you won't really know what it is if you save the seed. So the critical thing here is that I just let one crucifer plant be seeding at a time in my garden, and right now I've got huge cabbages growing right here, but they're not going to seed. There's no flowers. And so the only crucifer I've got going to seed right now is green curly kale. I don't even allow another type of kale around here to go to seed, or they would cross-pollinate. If I had multiples, I'd have to cover one on one day and cover the other on another day so that the flowers are protected from pollinators hitting them on the same day. So this is green curly kale. It's a crucifer, and it will cross-pollinate with anything else that's got a similar looking flower. But in this case, it's going through all the different stages of going to seed at the same time, which is very common. Don't be alarmed. There's seeds that are still just opening up, but at the same time, there's very mature seed pods that are starting to form little baby seeds. Now just coming up on your screen right now will be an image of kind of stages and steps of seeds of crucifers coming to maturity. Do you see that from left to right? It's a green immature pod where the seeds wouldn't be developed to a totally brown rattly formed pod. So what I'm waiting for is for this plant and the one that's behind it as well here to form enough mature brown rattly seed pods that I can break off those stalks and put them in a brown bag where I will label green curly kale and the year that it is, and then I know the year that seed's from, and I've saved my seed for the year. That's going to be the most vigorous, healthy seed that I can have, as long as it's not cross-pollinated with other crucifers, and that's what you do to save your own seed. Pretty exciting. Okay, as promised, I also wanted to talk about the joy of eating kale, and I try to just summarize it as fresh, fried, dried, or blended. Fresh is really simple. I take the leaves and I eat them mostly in salads or just as I'm working in the garden. Some people don't like them fresh, or their bodies can't digest them easily when they're fresh. And one of the things that I've learned, and maybe you've heard this before, is just by squishing or scrunching the leaves of the kale really helps break down the cell structure ahead of time, makes it much easier to chew and to digest. I love kale that way, just in a fresh salad. I put it in with coleslaws and other things as well. So fresh, fried, and dried. Fried's pretty simple. I put it in with all my egg dishes in the morning, fried up with omelets. I fried up with stir fries, with rices, and I enjoyed it so many different ways fried. I love putting it in a grilled sandwich with onions and garlic and lots of chard and lots of kale with maybe an egg and toasted bread. That's a wonderful, tasty sandwich. If you got fresh tomatoes to add, it just gets that much better when it's fried. Dried, have you ever made kale chips? And you don't need to have a food dehydrator to do that, though that's the easiest way. You can just take that kale with a little bit of oil, a little bit of nutritional yeast or salt, drizzled at a low temperature, put it on a pan in an oven, and let it dry out. Kale chips are super nutritious, obviously. Great if you're going on cycling or hiking things. Great way to get snacks for the kids that they'll be enjoying eating their greens. And then blended. I've got one of those little immersion hand blenders, so on top of my own big blender to make smoothies every morning, which always has turmeric and ginger and fresh chard and fresh kale, I also use that immersion hand blender whenever I make sauces. So my kids end up with taco meat, spaghetti sauce, stews and soups, and there's almost always kale or chard blended into that, and the immersion blender just totally turns it into a puree liquid. The kids don't even know there's kale in there, and the yumminess and the nutrition gets in there. So fresh, fried, dried, and blended, all beautiful ways to enjoy it. Hey guys, if you've been watching the Kale edition today on YouTube, thanks for watching along in the channel. Please subscribe and let others know about things that are hopeful, helpful, and healthy from Sustainable Stace. See you next time.